Nutrition Depot, your fitness fuel.
Welcome to Nutrition Depot Podcast. I'm Hannah Bacani, your host, and joining us for this episode is Tim Nutrition again.
Thank you so much.
Yes, this is Supplementation 101, specifically focusing on the strategies of optimal health and wellness.
Right.
So, in the talks of supplementation, why is nutrition and supplementation so important for athletes' performance and health?
Nutrition is very important because you can simply compartmentalize that an athlete's job is basically to train, eat, and sleep, then repeat. So if their job is technically three things, then nutrition becomes a third of their job. So in that essence, nutrition becomes very important because it serves as the fuel while they train their engine, right? So in terms of the athlete's needs and demands, remember that athletes train way, way, way more than a regular person. You can say that being an athlete is technically a full-time job because when you're not training, you're thinking about the skills needed to hone. And if you're not doing that, you're enhancing physical qualities. And if you're not doing that, you're recovering.
It's your entire life, basically.
It's your entire life, exactly. So for most people, the job ends with after office, right? It's like a 9 to 5, done. For athletes, it's a 24-hour job, right? So nutrition plays a huge role because if you under-recover for a bit, it bleeds to the next part of your job because you can't perform. And when you can't perform, it leads to the next problem, which is you have now some sort of mental issue, self-esteem issue, and now which leads to training more again.
So, what you're saying is that it's really a need for the athletes to really progress or maintain that level of competitiveness. You need the supplementation, or can you do without it?
The answer to that is more of the practicality question, wherein can you do it without supplementation? So for most people, we already complain about our jobs being so hectic, being so demanding to the point that you coach, na busy ako.
Yeah.
Hindi ko nagawa yung diet ko. Hindi ko nasundan kasi may ganito. And that's only you working in a 9 to 5 where everything else is not controlled. An athlete's schedule is way more hectic than that. Sometimes you would get schedule changes the night off. Na nung umaga nung same day na yon, they said training was 8. For some reason, training became 10.
So, how many times a day do normal athletes train? Just for everybody's reference.
A general grassroots athlete would train once, right? And that's usually around 2 to 3 hours. If it's a team sport, that's around 2 to 3 hours. If it's an individual sport, probably 1 hour, 1 hour 20, 1 hour 30, right? But as you get better in terms of level, the competition heightens. Now you have to train more. You have to train in different aspects. You have to train your brain. So may psychological training yan. You have to train your physical system. May weight training yan, SNC, strength conditioning. And you also have the skills training with the team. And you also have individual training.
Sometimes it's 3 times a day sila.
Or even 4.
Wow.
Exactly. And may counting pa, rehab.
Oh my goodness.
So it's like working 5 jobs at once.
Okay.
Right? So if you cannot do yung nutrition mo well, doing one job, what makes you think you can do 5 jobs and not need
Extra help.
extra help? Exactly. So that's where the supplements come in. Because in terms of convenience, do you really have time to go home, chop some vegetables, wash them, luto, diba? Prep, dalhin mo. Eh, by the time na maluto mo siya, wala ka ng pahinga. You need to go straight to your next appointment, right? Your next meeting, which is another form of training. So that's the convenience part of supplements because they usually come in powders, pills, bring it with you, pop it in so that you get more time for yourself.
So in the first episode, we briefly talked about the supplements that you should add to your stack. We talked specifically about protein and creatine the most. Because we talked about it in the sense that I can't be eating 5 pounds of meat every day. It's just too much. It's not realistic. I feel like I'm working out my mouth.
Correct.
Diba? So it's really the convenience factor. But I think there's still a lot of misconception when it comes to that. Especially in older audiences. There's a lot of people saying that it's bad for the kidney. That it's like it's an enhancement thing. What can you say regarding those topics?
For protein specifically, it's been debunked already that in healthy systems, actually, like you don't have any pre-existing kidney conditions, kumbaga, fresh yung kidney mo, healthy siya, wala siyang tama to begin with, it can actually, it's very robust. It can tolerate a lot of things because a kidney's job is technically to filter waste products. So, syempre, yes, you increase the protein intake, you will give it more load. But rest assured, in a healthy kidney, it can handle it. Okay? So, there's a difference kasi between general health and optimization. Same as how there's a difference between doing your job and getting promoted. Right? So, when you do your job, pwede naman that you do your bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
Para lang you keep your job.
Okay.
Wala, pera-pera lang, salary lang. Pwede naman yun. Right? But do you expect to excel? Right? Wala, dyan ka lang.
Siyempre, dun tayo sa Excel.
Okay, kung mag-excel ka, then you play by different rules. So that's why there are some things called ergogenic aids, which are different from supplements kasi supplements, panakip-butas sila, as previously mentioned dun sa last episode natin. But ergogenic aids are things that give you that 1%, 2% edge for you to excel over the competition. So, pag bumabalik siya with issues about health, it becomes a gray area that you need to play with na what supplements or what ergogenic aids give the most benefit with the least amount of risk. Ayun. So, mostly, if you're talking about creatine, protein, these are proven na sobrang laki ng benefits versus the risk involved to the point that it's recommended already to the general public. Now, for example, creatine, if you want to be more specific, even if you go 20, 25 grams of creatine, the problem that you will get only is probably some sort of bloating.
Initially.
Yeah. And then some sort of gastrointestinal problem. Sumakit ng tiyan mo. And that's the worst of it. Versus the entire plethora of benefits na makukuha mo from muscle endurance, muscle strength, cognitive function, gut health, and so on. Right? So, there's no reason to not use it if you're healthy.
I like how you brought up creatine because I think there's still a lot of, hesitation when it comes to that. When I started taking creatine, there was an initial bloat, but because I was taking creatine, I could work out more and I ended up losing more weight because I could train more and harder.
Exactly.
So I like how you really assess the benefits and it really outweighs
the
risks of it all. Now, I know that nutrition and supplementation is dependent on the person's lifestyle, the type of sport they do. So how can individuals tailor nutrition and supplements to their goals and needs?
Okay, so I think that first goes with a question about needs analysis. So we can go as general or as specific as we want, but in a blanket statement in general, most athletes would probably want to tailor their training into specific slots or specific phases. So, for example, you do not want to be losing weight and eating less during competition because you need the energy, right? So the technical term for this is something called periodization, wherein it's basically just a very technical term on planning, lumping similar things that go well together. So, you want to do, let's say, papa-abs ka, papatuyo ka, papa-cuts ka, maybe away from competition when you're eating less so that when it comes time to perform where you need more carbohydrate and stuff, magagawa mo siya. So, in terms of supplements, you basically are just playing takip-butas game.
Depends on what phase you are in your
depends
training.
on what phase you are. Let's say you're lifting more weights, you're doing less skill-specific work, then you want to have more protein and protein-related and recovery-related supplements in your arsenal, right?
Yeah.
But during season, since you're doing less weight training, it depends on the demands of the sport. So if the sporting season is like 1 to 2 days lang, then recovery becomes less of an importance, but more of the performance supplements ang kailangan mo kasi it's only 1 to 2 days. There's not much that you can recover. However, Conversely, in extended seasons, that there are some seasons na 2 months long, 3 months long, yung mga team sports, yung mga volleyball, basketball.
Basketball. Mga ganun.
Matibay yan eh. Usually, the teams that win the championships, sure, they could be good. Talent-wise, they could be both good. Ang tanong dyan, kaninong roster yung mas walang injury? Kaninong roster yung mas fresh? Kasi pwedeng mataas talon mo at the start of the season. Let's say you're dunking, you can dunk until the half of your arm. Pero sa sobrang dami mong pagod and injury dun sa dulo, hindi mo naabot yung ring by the end of the season, right? So, yeah, it plays into those factors.
So, with supplementation, it really helps with preventing injuries as well.
Correct, because you're addressing recovery. So remember, nutrition is vital to recovery. There's nothing else aside from sleep, which is still also the domain of nutrition because there are some things, supplements that you can take to help with your sleep. So talagang the entire facet of recovery, nutrition side yun, 100%.
It's not just what's happening on the court.
Yeah, definitely. I would even argue that when you train, you actually do not get stronger. Kasi when you train, you actually break down those muscles. And until you can recover them, diba? Let's say, after workout, mas malakas ka ba before workout o after the workout? Before, diba? Kasi fresh ka. Right?
Afterwards,
after the
it's like,
workout, ayun nga, medyo wala ka na after ng workout eh.
Yeah.
So, that's the point of my argument na if you cannot recover after that workout, then technically you just got weaker.
You gotta break it down to build it back up.
Correct.
Okay. You touched upon the supplements that make you sleep better. What are those supplements?
There are a lot, but let's go for the most practical ones. I think the first one that most people commonly miss is magnesium.
Okay.
Magnesium levels are depleted usually faster in times of stress. So magnesium is an electrolyte. It forms one of the 4 major ones. So it's sodium, calcium, potassium, magnesium. Usually, ang viewpoint that you want to see is that most people kasi are familiar with sodium, right? Pawisan, may sodium, magtitake ng electrolyte. Usually when they say electrolyte,
Replenish.
when they say electrolyte, they don't really mean electrolytes. They just mean acid, sodium, right? Then you have potassium. Usually when people hear cramps, they hear kaya ka ng saging for the potassium, right? These are all related towards how your muscle interacts with your brain. So it's a nervous system. Ang counterpart nun, sodium is the same as calcium in a sense.
Oh.
Yeah, because like there are certain pumps in the body. We don't want to get into the entire science part of it, but both help with contraction, your sodium and your calcium. Whereas your potassium relaxes, magnesium also relaxes. So it's a nervous system modulator. So para mas relax ka.
Magnesium, potassium.
Yun. So para mas relax ka at night. Sometimes kasi when you can't fall asleep, it's not because hindi ka antok or hindi ka pagod. It's because your nervous system is still alive.
That's so interesting.
Yun. And then you pop the magnesium to bring it down. And usually, pag relax ka, you tend to also fall asleep.
This is specifically popular for those working out at night.
Yeah, definitely.
Kasi you're so,
adrenaline pa eh.
filled with energy pa rin. So this is a great way to like chill out the body.
Chill out.
Do you also recommend melatonin?
Yeah, so the thing with melatonin is that it helps you feel sleepy. That's the sleepy effect. Ang problem lang sa culture or society natin ngayon is that we've been trained ever since that we were young na, have you ever like dozed off accidentally in class like before?
Oh yeah.
Parang yung head bang.
Oh yeah.
Sa sobrang sanay na natin sa ganong feeling, nilalabanan na natin naturally yung urge to sleep. And this also spills over as to why caffeine is the most over-abused drug in the entire world. So remember, caffeine does not exist naturally in the body. It's a drug. Okay? So that combined together, it doesn't really help with sleep quality.
It just helps you fall asleep.
Yes.
Okay.
So sometimes people who take melatonin, they fall asleep, they wake up, you ask them how their sleep was, sabihin parang pagod pa rin ako. Yun. Kasi it doesn't really help with the quality of the sleep, just the quantity.
Okay. It's good to know the differences and the uses of these supplements so you know what to add into your stack.
Correct. Yeah. So ultimately, the end of it is knowledge is power. Basically,
Knowledge is
if you know about it.
knowledge is power. And speaking of knowledge, I know there's a lot of misconception when it comes to supplementation and nutrition. What are the dietary mistakes do people make often, and how can we avoid them with knowledge?
All right. So dietary mistakes, I think, again, with society, it's more of a psychological variable. Na we're in the age where information is very widespread, and instant gratification is well received. Na let's say you want food, right? You order online, in your
Delivery.
doorstep. Yeah, delivery in your doorstep.
Faster the better.
In about 15, 25 minutes. So tendency, our culture, we want things fast. Sometimes nawawala yung virtue of the patience in the process.
Yeah.
So the most common mistake, going back to that question, is being too impatient. Na me working as a nutrition coach, I often have clients that ask me, or in the first session pa lang, I ask them about their goals. And they start spouting, going like, Coach, I want to get thinner. I want to get stronger. I want to perform better here. And I want to gain muscle mass in 1 month. Wow, that's a lot.
And also, some of it doesn't make sense. I want to lose weight. You can't do that all unless you're like kind of a beginner, right?
Exactly. So that goes back to dun sa sinasabi ko kanina, that you want to lump things that are similar together. Na kapag ma-fat loss ka, of course, that's gonna require you to eat less. You're not gonna perform as well if you eat less, for sure. Right? So, yun yung common mistake na sinasabi ko, na they have to, like, at least me as a coach, I'm the one responsible in that session to tell them, you might want to start with this and that before you go to this phase and that phase. Just because if pinagsasabay-sabay mo yan, I know your motivation is extremely high right now. But if I give you this diet plan, I'm 1,000% sure within 3 days, give up ka na. Kasi ang dami kong prerequisites dyan. I'm just following your goals. And then you're gonna beat yourself up after na, ay, wala kasi akong disiplina na ganyan-ganyan. No, it's not that. That's not the problem. Your discipline's not the problem. The problem is you're just setting too many things. You want too many things too fast all at once.
So set realistic goals.
Correct.
I like how you talked about lumping these things together, kasi you can't have like 5 different things.
Correct.
So for example, for weight loss, what would you recommend as a lump?
In terms of training or
In terms of nutrition, because I think, for example, people want to lose weight and build muscle mass, and it doesn't make sense because if you want to focus on one thing, what's the other? Yeah.
Okay, I get it. So usually with weight loss, you want to take it into context muna. Na is the person or whoever you're dealing with, are they healthy to begin with? So if you're dealing with an obese person, then you want to prioritize weight loss, and muscle mass wise medyo bahala na muna. I mean, right? Because like at the end of the day, you don't want to be obese and have a lot of muscle mass. Kasi that's still unhealthy.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. So usually health is a number one priority. So you take someone who's obese, lose as much fat as possible, spare as much muscle, not even gain, just spare as much as possible. There will be losses for sure. Kasi you have to account for the practical side of things na how long would it take them to lose that weight? Let's say you're talking about someone who's like 250 pounds. They want to go to, let's say, 170. If you lose the typical range, na sinasabi lang healthy weight loss, 1 to 2 pounds per week. I mean, 170 to 250 is like, what? 80 pounds. So that, kung 1 pound a week, that's 80 weeks. Mahaba-haba yun. Baka,
Slow and steady.
Oh, yeah. But then, it's not always the right call because 80 weeks, I don't have enough patience for 80 weeks. You're gonna have to like make certain phases more like faster and some certain phases slower. So you wanna match your training status also to that. Na yung iba, mas cardio-based ka, less weight training, more cardio and stuff like that. And then later on in certain phases, may iba siya, babaliktad siya.
Okay. I like it. A lot of people navigate through so much information on sports nutrition information. how do you make those smart decisions if you're just scrolling online?
Okay. Well, the best way for you to not be misled
Yeah.
by the whole plethora of information.
I thought you're gonna say influencers.
Oh.
Because there's a lot of information out there.
Ayun na nga.
Yeah, pag
So,
maganda yung body mo, you can say anything, people will believe you.
yeah, exactly. Basta may ano lang, may follower, may
Oo.
following ka
So may
lang.
abs.
Yeah, exactly. And you look good and whatever, right?
Mhm.
So the issue there is that I think you need to know the foundations. If you have a strong foundation, you can decipher kung alin yung tama, alin hindi. So the basic, I would say, 5 foundations na masasabi ko is that no matter what you do with your diet, no matter what your goal is, it all comes back to these 5 things.
Okay.
That number 1, you want to eat in a certain amount that allows you to function. And when I say function, I mean physical, mental, social. So if you're on a diet, or let's say some influencer tells you na bawal to, bawal yan, bawal yan, ganyan. And then another doctor tells you, ganyan, bawal to, bawal to, bawal ganyan. And then, na-check mo siya na parang, now how do I execute this? I can't even go out to eat with my friends.
Yeah.
I stopped ganyan, my hair starts falling and blah, blah, blah. Then most likely, alam mong mali yun. Okay, so that's the first rule. The second rule is that you wanna eat in a sense na may some sort of proteins ka across the day. So, hindi naman kailangan i-optimize yung part na yun, pero may some sort of protein feedings ka at least 3 to 4 times a day.
Okay.
So, basically, every meal, you ask yourself, umaga, may proteins ba ako dito? Eggs, ganyan. Lunch, may ulam ba ako? Ganyan. Okay? It doesn't necessarily have to be animals. Some vegetarians are okay as well.
Legumes, beans.
Yes, exactly. Even yung mga grains na higher in protein, like yung mga quinoa, right? So, definitely fine. But as long as meron, the nuances are preferential.
Okay.
Number 3 is that it allows you a certain capacity to work out. So if a program tells you do not work out, that's a red flag.
Oh.
I mean, it's general knowledge, right? That
Yeah.
working out is good for you.
You mean like a dietary program that tells you not to work out?
Yeah. Kasi there are things like that. Na they,
I've heard that. I don't want to say
yeah, pero may ganon. May mga ganong programs na they usually cover, the MO is that they cover science
Yes.
with what they call pseudoscience. Meaning, they start off with a piece of information that is actually true, yung general info, but the nuances that comes with it, medyo questionable na. Na they start spouting things like, oh, because when you work out, your cortisol levels increase
Yes!
and blah, blah, blah. And then some sort of your hormonal function will blah, blah. And then here's a test that will take your hormonal function. Here's a pill.
Yeah.
It's like 50,000 pesos and then ganyan. Definitely, those are red flags. People have been working out. People have been getting stronger for years at this point. You do not need to spend 100K on something just to make your body look good, like decent, to be healthy. Okay. Number 4 is that it allows variety and moderation. So what that means is that there's a certain flex or there's a certain wiggle room for things that you enjoy. So hindi siya pwedeng araw-araw walang variety na puro chicken, kamote, chicken, kamote, chicken, kamote. Yes, it can get you results. It can be very effective. But guess what? There's a lot of ways to lose weight. You can chop off your arm if you want to. It doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So, you want to have some sort of wiggle room.
Balance.
Yeah, balance in there that allows for a little bit of variety, a little bit of moderation na may ibang items pa pumapasok sa diet mo that you can actually enjoy the process, not just getting the outcome. And lastly, to top it all off, dapat hindi siya nag-antagonize dun sa social circles mo. Kasi remember, the definition of health, this is WHO, so wala na itataas dito. This is a World Health Organization. It defines health as what? The balance of what? Physical, mental, social, and emotional. So, if by any point may na-compromise dyan, is it truly still healthy? Or is it something na papunta ka na sa pseudoscience? So, ayun. Basically, if you wanna look for, discriminate between among information sa internet, have those 5 tenets, hindi ka mawawala.
So is that how you differentiate science and pseudoscience?
Yes. Sort of.
Okay. What are the other nutrition red flags you have when it comes to pseudoscience and science?
I would say that most people who practice through science try to simplify
Okay.
things, because the purpose of communication is to take a complex idea and try to give it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
Na you want to be heard. You want not only to be heard but also understood. People who practice pseudoscience want to take a simple idea and convolute it and turn it into something very, very complex that no one else understands, but it sounds impressive.
Okay.
Because I could start spouting like random things about leucine thresholds, that you need to eat 6 meals a day to optimize that 35 grams protein per feeding so that all amino acids pump in. And then when you sleep, an hour, 30 minutes after, your growth hormones can again. Yeah, you can go deep, but do people understand you?
For me, a red flag when it comes to nutrition online and supplementation is if they tell you exactly what you should take, and we're a vast group of people.
Correct.
How can we apply, like, this is the best workout, this is the best diet, this is the best supplement?
As a general rule, the best diet is the one that you can stick to. So the moment that you can't stick to anything, it doesn't matter what they say.
Yeah.
Because the mere fact that you cannot execute it, that means you're doing zero. Right? So the easiest one is find something practical that you're already doing and then just take tweaks from that based on the 5 tenets that we mentioned earlier.
Okay. This is why I trust you, Tim.
Love it.
I can keep asking you questions all day and he always has the best answer. And this is also why I trust Nutrition Depot, because we have this podcast every month and we get to ask these questions from you guys to Tim, to experts out there. So always listen to the experts that know what they're talking about and that have the credentials to back it up. Right?
Correct.
Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you so much.
Actually, my next question, you touched upon it already. So what are some of the tips for eating healthy when you're leading a busy life?
I think in terms of having a busy life, it means availability is an issue. Convenience is a big factor.
Yes.
So ultimately, to account for most things, you want to have a certain ratio as a rule. It's like a 70-30 or an 80-20 ratio between whole foods and treats. So as a general rule, you don't want to skip any meals because how the body functions is that you digest food in a manner that's around 2 to 6 hours. So you want to keep energy availability up. So at least have your basics, your breakfast, your lunch, your snack, your dinner. I'm not saying you need to have like a full-on sobrang
Strict.
complete the breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What I'm saying is more on at least 70% of yung apat na yun, maayos siya. Kasi I believe naman people are educated, right? You know what's healthy, you know what's not. So, yung 70% na yun, kahit sabihin natin basta whole food siya, na sure, it's fried egg, it's fried, it's fine, it's still whole food. Sure, kumakain ka ng kanin and stuff like that, it's fine, it's carbohydrates. And then if you want to keep your sweets, your treats, your supplements, keep it under that 30% margin. Yun. So that's the basic.
Basic. 3 times a day.
4 times.
4 times a day.
Like breakfast, lunch, merienda, and then dinner.
Can we describe a typical plate that people can apply to their daily life right now if they're super busy?
Right. I think the most applicable one is like what you call the pinggang Pinoy kasi it's where
Yes.
we end up Oh, yeah.
Ulam, kanin.
Ulam, ganon.
Okay.
So basically the plate goes on bilog siya. So they have an infographic here. You can search it like in Google. Nahanapin mo lang dyan basta may gulay siya, may ulam siya, may kanin siya. And there's a certain percentage for each. You don't have to like weigh and measure your food here. Having a plate that looks like that. So the train of thought goes, upo ako, asan yung ulam ko, asan yung kanin, asan yung gulay. That is relatively complete. Multiply it by 3. Kung may na-miss kang isa, then you use supplements to fill the gaps.
Okay.
You just ask yourself, anong na-miss ko? Ay, wala akong ulam, salad lang kinain ko. So that means wala akong protein. Protein shake ka. Ay, wala akong gulay. Mag-fiber supplement ka.
Again, supplements are panakip butas.
Let's go.
I love that. And that's the easiest way to put it, I think. That's like easily digestible. Knocks pun. Easily digestible. Yeah. And I like how you talked about accessibility when it comes to nutrition. Because I think when we read things online or we watch like international nutritionists, they always say quinoa, they always say, you know, the chia seeds, but that's not really easily accessible
Yeah,
to
it's
us
very
Pinoys.
hard to get it
Yeah,
locally.
yeah.
And it's not something that you can buy up like in the corner.
Exactly. So I wanted to touch upon the organic food movement. It's not easily accessible to all of us.
And it's expensive.
And it's expensive.
Correct.
Is it really optimal? Because this is the videos I see online. You should get this instead of this because this is better for you. This is organic. This is natural. What does that even mean?
It's a whole debate between using GMO, non-GMO, free range, organic, pesticide, right? This is the simplest way I can put it. If everything was organic and raised properly, we wouldn't have enough food to feed everyone. That's a fact. Okay, scientists know this. So the mere fact that we have food means you're not technically eating all organic. Okay. The question becomes, is there a certain dosage that it becomes unhealthy? In terms of nutrients, I can say there is no difference between organic and your usual supermarket foods.
Oh my goodness.
Nutrient-wise,
Yes.
no difference.
Micronutrients.
Oo, wala. Walang pinagkaiba.
Okay.
The only difference is the one is raised without pesticides, the other is raised with pesticides. Now, there's an entire debacle about pesticides causing cancer and blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Pili ka. Gusto mo ng parasite, pero organic. Gusto mo ng walang parasite, pero hindi organic. Either way, the results are kind of equal.
Okay.
So, I guess, in a practical manner, if you have the resources, if you have access to organic stuff, maybe you can go for the non-pesticide, the organic ones, the free-range ones, if you're in that income budget. But I'm saying it's totally fine as well if you're not. It doesn't make much of a difference.
I hate the fear mongering that it comes with that type of nutrition.
It goes back to yung question, yung answer natin kanina, that the best diet is the one that you can execute. If I told you that you can only eat organic stuff, tapos busy yung araw mo, alangan na pupunta ka pa sa market na organic just to buy your rice, right? When you can readily get it across the street.
Yeah.
Yun lang yun.
You don't want to get stressed with your nutrition.
Exactly.
It should be simple, right? In terms of vitamins now, how can you tell you're lacking vitamins if your meals or nutrition are in check?
Okay. For vitamins kasi, we have, as practitioners, have what you call subclinical and clinical signs. So usually these are presentations that when a trained person sees them, you can it's like a detective game. You have clues.
Ooh.
Kagad. Parang clues. Ayan. So, the most common ones, most relatable is, for example, kung may cramps, diba? Well, when you think cramps, automatically, you think either dehydrated or may sodium issue or may potassium issue. So, that's the most basic way to put it, that even untrained practitioners have access to this popular information na if those presentations happen, then it might be that. And it can even go deeper na yung ibang tao na may seborrheic dermatitis, yung parang dandruff, ganun. So that usually is linked to some sort of vitamin B2, riboflavin, or vitamin B6 deficiency. So most likely butas na gano'n.
May physical manifestations.
Correct. May physical manifestations sila. Now, the question becomes, is that a reliable way to put it? Our answer is, even though you are trained, even though doctor na yan, even though nutritionist na yan, dietitian na yan, hindi siya 100% reliable. That's why we have tests.
Blood test.
Blood tests, exactly. Kasi even the doctors, diba, you go to the room, anong nangyari? May cough. They listen to it, they look for signs, and then eventually, if they're not sure, test. So the surefire way to just know everything is just get the test. If it bothers you enough,
Yeah.
to the point that it becomes debilitating, then once you access your medical professional, yung test na yung magsasabi.
I like how straightforward we are with this.
Because we're not quack doctors. We're based on science. We need data.
We need to know exactly what's going on in our bodies, and this is the easiest way to do it. And we've been talking about nutrition for the past 2 episodes here. To wrap everything up, how can athletes use supplements to perform and recover better during and after training?
Again, that falls under the entire convenience of it. I handle mostly 80% of my population as athletes. There is a huge logistical reason why supplements are better than whole foods, arguably, post-workout. And it's because after you conduct a training session, food is not readily available. You don't have a private chef na isusubo sa'yo yung pagkain. Usually what happens after a training session, if you've ever been one, is after the training session, there's a debrief. Kwentuhan yan.
Chika-chika.
Chika-chika. Yung chika-chika na yan is what you did wrong sa training, what you did right, what you can improve on. That's about 30 minutes, 1 hour, right? And then, maliligo ka pa. Lalabas ka pa. Bibili ka pa ng pagkain. Kakainin mo yon. Magdadigest pa yon. That entire span takes roughly around 2 hours. There is what you call a post-workout window na around 2 to 3 hours na if napasok mo yung window na yon, your recovery rates are much faster.
Yung supplement. Pag pinasok mo yung supplement.
Any nutrient. Yeah, the problem is getting access to that nutrient. So if you live a well enough life where you have a private chef, while the debate is going on in the locker room, may magbibigay siya ng pagkain.
May bibigyan ng tubig, ganun.
Yun. In that context, sure, you don't really need supplements kasi nakakuha mo siya. However, in the general setting, most people don't have that privilege. They don't have that luxury. So dun pumapasok na, kung may whey ka, tinimpla mo, kung may some sort of carbohydrate supplement ka, pasok mo, inumin mo, di done. Napasok mo na, and then you can go eat later on. So how does an athlete use that to optimize their recovery? That's basically the grand example. It's the convenience part.
Wow. I feel like supplements are an equalizer to our lifestyles as well.
Correct.
Now that you put it this way.
Yes, exactly. It's basically just a modern day development. It would be not smart to not take advantage of it.
Yeah. Team supplements over here.
Let's go.
Let's go. Thank you so much, Tim Nutrition, for another fruitful episode about nutrition. And this is part of our series called Supplementation Simplified. Thank you so much, Tim.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, everybody. Follow us online, Nutrition Depot PH, on Instagram and Facebook. And do check out our episodes here on Spotify, Nutrition Depot Podcast. Thanks.
Nutrition Depot, your fitness fuel.